All right, we have been looking at solving equations for the last few days. All of our equations have all been one-step equations, whether we've been dealing with adding and subtracting, multiplying, or dividing. So today we are going to be moving on to multi-step equations. Multi-step means that there's just multiple steps, which just means that there's more than one step, right, to solve it. So the first thing that we need to remember is that inverse operations, what they do is they cancel or undo each other. And if you remember, my inverse operations are addition and subtraction, and then multiplication and division go together. So to undo addition, I subtract. To undo multiplication, I divide, and vice versa. It goes the other way also. So inverse operations are what we use to solve any of our equations. That's why they're so important. So I have a couple steps in order to solve, there's an extra P in there. I didn't notice that earlier. There's a couple steps we use to solve multi-step equations. So the first step is to rewrite the problem if necessary. So I'll rewrite it if I need to. My second step is to distribute if I can. So if I can distribute, right, this is what that would look like. It would be like having 2 times x plus 4, right? If I see something like this, I know, right, that I need to distribute my 2 to my x and to my 4 before I can move along. So distribute if you can. After I'm done distributing, then I'm going to combine my like terms. Whatever I can combine on both sides of my equations, I will combine. Now, this is the part that kind of throws it off for some people. So normally when we talk about doing math, we talk about order of operations, right? We have, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, PEMDAS, right? We know that this is the order that we do stuff in normally. That is no longer the case in terms of equations. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to undo any addition or subtraction first. Once we've done that, I'm going to then undo my multiplication and division, and I will show you why. So let's say that I have something like, 2x plus 7 equals 8. Something like that. So if we were to follow our order of operations, the first thing that I would want to do then is to get rid of my multiplication. I would want to divide first. Well, I can't just divide this by 2 and divide this by 2 and then be done. I would also need to divide my 7 by 2. So then these cancel out, which is what we want eventually. So then I would have x plus 7 halves equals 4. Does this look very helpful to get me to solve my equation? No, it looks way more complicated than it did before, right? So if I were to solve this the right way, we've seen that this is not how I want to do this, right? If I were to instead subtract my 7 first, I would have 2x equals 1. This is much easier to solve. Then I just see that I can divide, and I get x equals 1/2. That does not look as easy if I were to keep it in this form, right? So that's kind of why we do our addition or subtraction first. It makes it a much cleaner and easier equation to solve when I do it that way. So let me get rid of this over here, and then we'll do some examples here together. first example here then is 3x plus 7 equals negative 5. So my first step that I'm going to want to do to solve this is I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides. The opposite of addition is subtraction, right? So I'm going to subtract 7 from here. Also going to subtract 7 from over there. I get 3x equals negative 12. Negative 5 minus 7 gives me negative 12. Once I've done this, then I can divide both sides by 3. I'm left with x equals negative 12 divided by 3 gives me a negative 4. X equals negative 4. That's my answer. I would like you to get into the practice of boxing your answers when you get to this point from now on, so that I know for sure that you know when you're done. Okay, our next example, x over 2 minus 3 equals 1. My first step in this point, right, is I want to undo my subtraction. So I'm going to add 3 to both sides. Now I'm left with x, oof, goodness, this is not liking me today. X divided by 2 equals 4, right? 1 plus 3 is 4. X over 2 means that I'm dividing, so to get rid of this means that I need to multiply. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 2 over 1 times 2. These guys cancel, right? So then I'm just left with x equals 4 times 2 is 8. X equals 8. All right, our last one on this page then, I've got 7 minus 4y equals 19. So the ones that we've been talking about before have had the variable come first and then have had either a minus or a plus. In this case, I'm starting with a 7. And so it might be kind of hard to realize like what I need to do in this situation, because a lot of people, their first inclination would be, well, I want to add 4y to both sides. And I could do that. That would be fine. I could do that. But it doesn't really help me too much, because it just means that I'm moving my 4y around, and that's not really what I want to do. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm noticing that I've got a positive 7 here, right? So I could think of this as positive 7 minus 4y equals 19. So when I do that, then it's pretty easy to realize, well, then I need to subtract 7. Oops, that's a 4. I need to subtract 7 from both sides. So then when I do that, I'm left with a negative 4y equals 19 minus 7 is 12. When I get to this point then, I would just divide both sides by negative 4. And I'm left with y equals 12 divided by negative 4, negative 3. Okay, there is something else that I want to say about this before we move on. Let's say that I get to the point, let's see, what if this was instead 7 minus y equals 19? So I'm taking the 4 out of the equation. I would still do this the same way, subtract 7 from both sides, but now I've got negative y, negative y equals 19 minus 7 is still 12. Can I stop here? Negative y equals 12. The answer is no. I cannot stop here, and here's why. If I'm looking at this, I've got a negative y, but there is technically a number in front of my y. So this is kind of like saying that there's a negative 1 here. So I have a negative 1 times y equals 12. So if I want to get rid of that negative 1, I'm multiplying in this case. I would need to divide both sides by negative 1. Now my negative 1's go away, and I'm just left with y equals 12 divided by a negative 1 is a negative 12. Right, so in this case, I can't stop when I get to a negative y. I have to make it so that my y is positive, that I have a positive 1 in front of it. Okay, I got a word problem up here for you. So you're buying a drum set that costs $495. The music store lets you make a down payment and pay the remaining balance in 3 equal monthly payments without interest. You make a down payment of $150. How much is each monthly payment? So I need to write an equation and then solve it. So if you think about this, my total is $495, right? And how I get there is I'm going to take my down payment, which was $150, and I'm going to add my total monthly payments to it. So my monthly payments were 3 equal payments. So it was 3 payments times whatever the dollar amount is for those payments. So my $495 would equal $150 plus 3x, 3 times my monthly payment. So then to solve this, right, it's pretty straightforward. I'm just going to subtract 150 from both sides. I'm left with, I'm going to come over here, 345 equals 3x. Then I'm going to divide both sides by 3. Then I'm left with x equals 345 divided by 3 should give me $115. So my payment every month for this drum set is $115 per month. Okay, all of the ones up until this point we haven't needed to distribute at all, but we are going to have to distribute now. So the first thing that I need to do when I look at something like this is I'm going to distribute to both terms, right? So I still have my negative 21 out front. Oh, goodness. Still have my negative 21 here equals 7 times 3 is 21, and 7 times x is a minus 7x. Oops. So if I subtract 21 from both sides, that'll be my first thing that I need to do. I'll have a negative 42 equals negative 7x. Okay, now that I've gotten to this part, I'm going to then take my negative 7, divide both sides by negative 7. That's going to leave me with x equals a positive 6. Okay, my next one involving distribution is going to also involve combining like terms. So I still need to distribute. There's a part of this that lots of people have been confusing today. So I'm still going to keep my 5x because I haven't done anything with that yet. Okay, 5x is still there. So now I'm going to distribute my 2. So I've got a minus. 2 times x is a 2x. Oh, come on. And then I'm going to keep my minus. 2 times negative 1 is a negative 2 minus 8. Oh, equals 8. Okay, so I'm minusing a negative here, which is the same thing as adding, right? So I've actually got 5x minus 2x. I've got a 5x and a 2x, and so I can combine those. 5x minus 2x is 3x. 3x plus 2 equals 8. Now at this point I can just subtract 2 from both sides. I'm going to bring this over here. So now I've got 3x equals 6. I'll divide both sides by 3. Leaves me with x equals 2. Okay, you gotta pay attention to your negative signs. because they matter, especially in this case. You would have gotten a completely different answer if you had done -2 instead of +2. All right, this last one's a little tricky, so it helps to draw a picture. So the perimeter of a given rectangle is 28 units. So the first thing I'm going to do is draw a rectangle quick. Okay. Perimeter, if you remember, perimeter means that I add up all of the sides. So when I add up all of these sides, it's going to equal 28. I'm given that the length of the rectangle is 10 units, and my width is x plus 2. So in order to find the perimeter, right, I would need to take 2 times x plus 2, because there's 2 of them, plus 10 equals 28. So then I can simplify this. I can distribute, right? I got 2x plus 4. Then I can combine these. Plus 20 equals 28. I can combine like terms more. I'm going to come up over here. So I've got, let's see, 2x plus 24 equals 28. Now I can just subtract 24 from both sides. Leaves me with 2x equals 4. Divide both sides by 2. X equals 2. Now, it would be easy at this point to say, well, I'm done, right? X equals 2, that's the end of the equation. Which is true, I have solved for x, but I'm not done. The question that I'm being asked here is, what is the width of the triangle? And so I found that x equals 2 down here, right? But I need to take that and plug it into my width over here. So my width of my triangle is x plus 2, which in this case is a 2 plus 2. So the width of my triangle is 4. That is my solution. That is my answer. The width of my rectangle is 4. And that is all that we have for 3.5.